so this is the final bit of my journey, where I just carried on sort of reflecting. A few things just came to me because I was still thinking about my mum with her depression and my sister, and neither of them are depressed anymore, and neither of them are on antidepressants anymore. But I was talking to my sister. We have really funny conversations now, because she's now, she's running a business, and she's running an Airbnb, and she is there's the nature of her business as well means that she's always, in her words, there's always some sort of shit show going on, and she's juggling loads of plates. And sometimes she rings me up and she goes, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, and I just think I'm going to cry. And always, by the end of, I know she's fine, by the end of our chats, 100% of the time, she's always laughing. I mean, really, always. And she said, and the other day she said, oh gosh, I went to the doctor and I told him, I said I couldn't stop crying, and he said maybe I should go on Prozac. And we carried on talking, and then she's laughing. And I said, I hope you told the doctor. You told the doctor, right, that you can't stop laughing. And she's completely fine, and I think she's starting to see that she is fine. But we were talking a bit as well about when she was younger. So in when she was, I don't know, a teenager probably, she focused on this thought that she was the odd one out. So we're 4 children, and she focused on the thought that she was the odd one out, and so she didn't know that thought wasn't real. And so, we bring our thoughts alive through our consciousness, and then they become our reality, and that is the reality that we live in. And so she didn't know that thought wasn't real. And then we all started to look at the behavior, and we focus on the behavior. And it's like, so why is Charles the one who's not joining in, and why Charles the one who's spending time up in her room, and why Charles the one who's sulky and not playing the games or whatever it is. And it's like a sort of tumbleweed belief. It just sort of gets bigger, or it's like that cloak that I was talking about, where it just sort of gets heavier and it becomes more part of you. It becomes it's like it is you, and yet it's not. It's what it's a coat that you can take off, and yet it becomes more part of you the more you focus on it, and the more you think it's real. And so, and she had various eating disorder and various issues, and she went to the Priory at one point, and I know that the help that was being offered, and it's the same with Georgia, the help is always well-intentioned, and I know that there's people who really were trying to help her. But I look back at that and I said to her, do you remember the day where we had like a family day, and we all had to come in, and we all sat around in these chairs, and with Charlotte sort of in the middle, and we all had to tell her what we thought about her behavior. And I said, what was that like? And she said, it was awful. You were all telling me how you didn't like my behavior. And she said it was awful. And I just thought, we are looking in the wrong direction. When we look at, someone's depression or anxiety or whatever it is, we focus on it, we focus on the behavior. It would be like focusing on that cake, that with the flat burnt pancake, and going, oh my God, that's awful. There's no point in fact, there's no hope in that. There's no hope that cake is suddenly going to rise and become this beautiful cake. It's not, and yet we keep looking at the product and the behavior, and we don't look in the right direction. We don't look at the whole and the unbroken and these gifts that we have, and the fact we're just innocently misusing them. And so another thing I thought about, for me, there's no hope in that. And it's like the principles, they're not built on looking at the past. They're not built on any of this. So it's that idea that we're just, we're not looking at the unbroken spirit that we are, the perfection that we are, that all of us are, not just some of us. And then I was looking a little bit at mum, and it just came to me that when my dad died, he got ill, and I was about 21 when he died. And there was this time when we all got together. We all came together as a family. And at that time, mum wasn't depressed. I mean, she was depressed beforehand, but in that moment, in those, sort of couple of weeks, she wasn't. And my sister would say, because she still carries some of this belief that depression is, in the brain. And she would say, well, yeah, but that was because she was in shock. And that was why she wasn't depressed at that time. And I would say now, I see something different. I see something different. I see something different about that time. That time, we were all together and we were all connected and we were all away from any sort of personal lives, personal thinking. We were just completely in the now. We were in this present moment and we were all reflecting on Dad, and we all were just, life was just working perfectly in a way. The grief, the sadness was just running through us, and that was okay. And the funny thing was, with the sadness, we could still laugh. There was moments when we'd think about, we'd reflect on a funny thing that Dad had done or something, and we'd be laughing. And I remember when the funeral, the church was sort of in the middle of nowhere, and maybe we were a bit late, but there was no one around. And I remember one of us said, "Oh my God, maybe no one's turned up." And I remember laughing, thinking, we were just, there was this natural flow about the whole thing when I look back on it now. And mum wasn't depressed at that time. And I would say she wasn't depressed at that time because she was completely, we were connected and present, and she was away from all the negative thinking and all this habitual negative thinking. And she was just in that nice space, in that reflective space. And then I said to mum the other day, I said, so why did you come off the antidepressants? And what happened? And she said, well, I mean, my mum's a bit sort of like, oh, I can't be bothered to be depressed anymore. But she sort of said, well, I got a dog. And I went, oh. And my sister said, well, that might be the brain, because it's a serotonin and she's going out more and she's got a dog. So that's changed chemistry in your brain. She's still slightly holding on to that belief. And I was thinking about Georgia. So when she, was suffering with anxiety, sometimes what I would do would be, when she'd wake up in the morning, the first thing that she would do was she'd start to feel really anxious. And she'd go straight to her anxious thinking. And that would be when she couldn't get up and she couldn't go to school. And so sometimes what I would do was I would take one of our dogs, the younger one, I would take Teal up to her room. I'd sneak her up so Pete didn't see, because Teal was often quite muddy. She's not allowed upstairs. And I'd sneak her up and I'd put this, I didn't care, put this muddy dog into Georgia's bed. And Georgia could not be anxious when she was with Teal. I said to her this yesterday, I said, could you ever be anxious with Teal? And she went, no. And I think that's because with Teal, every day is like it's Christmas. Every day she wakes up and she greets you like she hasn't seen you for a year. Every day she's just is like, hey, she's in the moment. You don't ever, oh, today oh, yeah. Teal's not like that. Every day she greets you and she's there and she's present, and you can't help but feel that presence. And you are distracted, or you are taken away from your anxious thinking or your negative thinking. And I'm not saying everyone has to buy a dog, but I'm saying that it's just another, I'm just pointing in the direction that maybe this is coming from your thinking, that maybe there isn't anything wrong with you. Because I mean, I know that there's nothing wrong with any of us, but you're not necessarily going to believe me, but I'm just pointing in the only way that I can. And this wisdom is here all the time. This wisdom runs through us. I remember there was this time when it was years ago, and Georgia was about 1, and then Freddie was a tiny bit older. And Pete, in his, you know, he had a really clever idea that he was lighting a bonfire in the garden. We were in Wales, and he poured some petrol on it, and there was this massive explosion. And Pete came running up through the garden, and he's burnt his face and his hair, and I, in that moment, I just went on autopilot. It's like from somewhere else, I knew what to do. I dealt with Pete and with the ambulance, and the ambulance was there, and I dealt with him, and then he'd gone, and I had Georgia and Freddie, and I had the whole day still, so we went down to the beach, and it was like in the estuary, and there were these little rock pools, and I was on the phone to the doctor, and the doctor was saying, we're going to have to transfer Pete to the Swansea intensive burn unit. And I was dealing with that. And meanwhile, Freddie is waving and waving frantically down the beach. And I get up and I think, well, there must be something. So I go over and I go and see Freddie, and they'd found this rock pool, because they're really shallow, but there was this rock pool that was really deep and that I hadn't seen. And Georgia's there, and all I could see was the top of her nose and her mouth, and she's just trying to breathe. She was drowning, basically. And I just scooped Georgia out, and I went back up the beach, and I got back on the phone with the doctor who was transferring Pete to the intensive burn unit. And then my sister rang me, and I said, well, Pete's in the Swansea intensive care, and Georgia's just nearly drowned. And Beck was like, how are you doing this, Kate? And I went, I have no idea. I have no idea. But somehow I was just being guided. There was just this, there's always the signs of this all over the place, but we just don't always see it. But when we look back, when we have seen it and we felt it, and we look back at our lives, we see that it was there all the time. Whether you see it or not, it's there. It's always there. It's running through all of us. And it made me think again, and this is my final metaphor for the day, it was like when Georgia was really anxious, it was like we were treading water. So we're in the sea and we're treading water. And then we came across the Principles, and it was like we saw that there were these dinghies. And so Georgia and I, we have our own dinghies. Everyone's in their own dinghies, and we're all connected by the ocean. So we climb into our dinghy, and we're there, and we're frantically, and the sea's still quite rough, and we're frantic. We're paddling with our hands at the front of the boat, and it's exhausting. And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, well, other people, some people are doing the same, but other people seem to have the sails up, and yet, this seems really hard work. And you've got people from their boats, and they're sort of shouting, and they're saying, just put the sail up, put the rudder in, put the daggerboard down, and get rid of that net that you're carrying. And I'm there, and I'm going, what? I can't really hear them. What are they saying? What are they telling me? And I carry on, and I'm struggling away like this. And I thought, when I went to see Dave and Jen, I'd had it. I was so tired of the struggle that I just turned around. And I just pulled on this rope. And there's nothing complicated about this dinghy. It's really simple. Pulled on this rope, and the sail goes straight up. And then when that happened, well, put the daggerboard straight down. That's pretty simple. And then you feel the rudder, and you start to steer. And then I remembered someone saying something about let go of the net. And I see that I'm dragging this really heavy net behind my boat, and it's full of debris and seaweed and bottles and stuff that I don't need. And I just unhook it, and it sinks to the bottom, and suddenly I'm light, and I can feel the wind, and I can steer, and it's so different. And Georgia, I'm there, and I'm saying, and she's still paddling at the front, and she's paddling away, and she's paddling away. And I said, Georgia, look, you've got this sail, and you've got you know, you've got the rudder and I said, it's all there. And she's going, no, 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 no. It's not there for me, Mum. Mum, you know, you might be able to do that because, you know, you've got something that I haven't got. You know, you're a bit older than me and you can put up, you know how to put up a sail. I don't know how to put up a sail. I don't know how to do any of that. And she wouldn't. She just carried on. She said, it's too rough. It's too rough. I can't look behind me, Mum. It's too rough. I'm just going to carry on doing it this way because I know this way. And this is the way I'm doing it. And I cannot put up a sail. And it's too difficult. And I'm saying, yeah, but you're carrying this really heavy net behind you. Just at least, you know, maybe unhook that. It'll make you a little bit lighter. And she's going, no, I can't look back. And then at some point, the same as me, you know, I think it just got too much. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to live, you know, without the anxiety. I think she knew the anxiety really, she knew it wasn't part of her. And at that moment, she turned around and the first thing she did was that she unhooked that heavy net that she didn't need. And that heavy net is representing all the belief that we carry around, the belief that we have to focus on every anxious thought, or the belief that we're different, that in some way this isn't for us, in some way, you know, we're failing at the principles, in some way that we can't do this, whatever that belief may be, that belief that is heavy, that's heavy, and you don't need it. You don't need it. It doesn't help you in any way. And it just slows you down. And then as soon as she'd let go of that heavy net, she just put the sails straight up. She just pulled on that rope, the sail went up, she put the dagboard down, she's steering and she's off. I mean, she's just feeling the wind in her sails, she's away. And it's not that you don't feel the life, you still feel life, you feel all the waves, but you know that you're made for it. That's the difference. You know that you're made for it. You know that you can do it. You know there's nothing wrong with you. You know that when you're recognizing these gifts that we have, you see how it works, then it's like this freedom that it brings, freedom from all that thinking. And my sister, what she's doing, just come to me now, is that she's paddling at the front of her boat. She's there like this, she's feeling overwhelmed, she's paddling. And when I talk to her, because we talk quite a lot, and when she comes up to my boat and she goes, Kate, can you just give me a tow? So I'll just tow her behind my boat for a bit and she has a little rest. And then she goes, okay, but I need to start thinking again now. And then she goes off and she's paddling away again. And I know she's doing it. She's doing this, all this going on. And she hasn't seen yet that she thinks I've got something that she doesn't have. I know she thinks that. She thinks, oh, well, Kate, that's Kate. You know, she's got that. And she thinks that, you know, she's a spiritual being and she's got that. But I don't have that. And it's just not true. She's just not looking. She's not putting up the sail. She's not holding onto the rudder and she's not putting the daggerboard down. She's got this massive, heavy net that she's dragging around behind her. But she'll see. She's going to see. I know she will. I know she will. Because it's the same for all of us. None of us are broken. None of us need to carry around that net. And we've all got the same sail and rudder. We can steer through life, and the daggerboard, and we can feel it and we can enjoy it. And there'll be rough times and there'll be, you know, it's just life. Life isn't, what do they say? Life isn't plain sailing. Anyway, I think that's me done.
Thank you, Kate. I love that. I always love your metaphors.
That was a beautiful metaphor. There's something that you said about when, this is just in this talk, when you were speaking about how you and your sister, and it reminded me of the parable of footprints in the sand.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why in my darkest time was there always, when I was walking through life, I always knew there was you and there was God and there was me, and Why in my darkest hour is there only one set of footprints, God? The time when you were struggling with Georgia in the rock pool and Pete in the hospital, and how am I doing this? I don't know. No, it was at that time of struggle where I carried you. It reminds me of that parable. It's like, how was it that I was managing to do this? I just got out of the way. How did I do that? I can't tell you that. I just got out of the way. And I think that's such a beautiful thing about life. It's like, and everything you've spoken about in these 3 calls, because this is the final call of 3, final video of 3. Please, if you come across this one, look at the other 2 as well. But your message has been so beautiful. You know, I know for a fact that you have seen the wholeness within yourself, and therefore you've seen the wholeness within everybody. And you speak about it so beautifully. And I know that you changing within yourself has changed your family, which it turns out, I think it was talk 2, you were talking about how Georgia was talking to a friend. Might have been this talk, I'm not sure. Georgia was talking to a friend. So that you've set fire to within Georgia is now spreading to the next person. I think that's such a beautiful thing. Kate, thank you so much for doing these calls.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.